All right, well, good evening, my friends, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am Sandy Shellis, and our guest tonight is Nicholas Humphrey. He will be with us shortly. I will say hi to everybody. I see Phil Stone and Old Sage Joe and Kim, our moderator. And hi, Darlene Gregg and JF Sebastian, Scott Andrews. Hi, Kevin Hester. Oh, my gosh, this is great. Karen Reese. Oh, boy, we got a full house. Desert Mantis, welcome. KS, Katie. Hey, Katie, Vegematic, everybody, thank you. I have a big show. And hi, Mira. Hi. This is awesome. All right, I have a big show, and I want to start with an article that, because we know what's happened. We've watched the tornadoes. We watched the devastation. It was horrible. It was terrifying to me because I have lived through one. And the devastation I saw was, to me, it was just insanity. It was really insanity. So as I started thinking about all of these things, I found this article that started me off on this whole trip about housing. And can any of this even be shored up? Can we even think in the United States that possibly, I can't think of any other country other than Canada where housing it can be shored up. It just looks like, of course, the force. I don't know. We'll talk to Nicholas about that. So let's get started really quickly on this article that I thought would be fun. Actually fun to start with. And let me put myself in here. All right, so let's go. And it's really interesting. Before Nick joins us, and we'll hear when he joins us, let's talk about home prices. So first I thought, okay, let's see what $500,000, which I know none of us have. We don't live like this, but we know a lot of these areas. And whether in areas like this, events are going to happen in all these different areas. Now, this is the Bronx. This is $500,000 or whatever, $500,000. So we're gonna whip through this. This is what a house in the Bronx, where I actually am from, around the Bronx area, is worth now. That's the price of this house here. Okay. This is the house, and it was $499. Okay, that's there. So let's think. As we go through, there's a lot of them. So we're not gonna do editorializing on every single one of them. But we see that even in the Bronx, there's weather events. I mean, New York City was hit with Sandy. It's just a matter of time. And there are waterways in the Bronx, right? So next, we're going to move from the Bronx. We're going to go to Birmingham, Alabama. And here is a house in Birmingham, Alabama. We see how it's built. I don't know what kind of reinforcements that this house would have for a tornado like they went through. Well, I don't know if this area was hit, but I got to take a sip. Reusable straw. And so we don't know, right? We don't know if any of this could ever withstand the kind of weather we saw. But these are what's going. This is the going prices in all these different places. And here's a 479,000 single family home in Alabama. Okay, and we will talk to Nick about what it's like in these different areas meteorologically. Here's Seattle. Okay, here's a Seattle house. And I tried to get all these advertisements off. So here's a house in Seattle. I think it's a condo. So it's a condo in Seattle, very clean. Not, obviously they don't have 7 cats. 455,000. So remember, we're thinking about the areas. What kind of things happen in these places? Phoenix, Arizona. Look at this house. What are the weather events that could happen in Phoenix, Arizona? We know droughts can happen, but this is a house in Phoenix, and they make them big, just like Texas. Look at the pool table in there. These people, they live, but this is America where everything is bigger. Everything is bigger. 539. So that is in North Phoenix. So we'd have to talk, we'll just keep it in your mind. Text. Keep all this in your mind. So here's Kansas City. Now, Missouri is another state that could get hit, And this house, it's a Tudor. Look at a lovely old, I don't know. It may not even be old. It may be renovated, and we don't know what kind of things they renovate with. I mean, are they putting extra reinforcements? I know I need a roof, and my house, we've had the tornado in 2017. Everybody knows ad nauseum. So I think about, oh my God, what am I going to be able to afford in a roof? I want a metal roof. I want hurricane clips, but is it going to make a hell of a bean of difference if a tornado hits me again? Is it really going to make a difference? Because right here, I see Dick is asking the question, and let me see, can I get him, make it bigger? No. Dick is saying, are you thinking about getting out of tornado lane? And the thing is, I never thought I was in tornado lane. And now we are hearing that everything's moving east. And I watched the maps during this whole thing because it was windy as shit here. And actually in Buffalo, my daughter's house, they lost power for like 8 hours, and she sent us pictures on our family chat of the tree that fell down right in her backyard while she's house sitting. And that's a whole other story. But okay, so here we are. We are in Kansas City. I'm trying to get through a lot of stuff before Nicholas joins us because I thought this was really cool. Kansas City. Okay, I do like the room, I have to say. I'm not going to say I don't like the room. I do. Kansas City. And this house was $490. So there's a lot like this in elegant Tudor types in Raminelli Gardens. It doesn't say how old it is, and it doesn't say what it's how it's built. So that's, these, we have to think about all of this stuff. Think about everything. I mean, I think really, basically, my house would never make it through any of it. It wouldn't, but I have a basement. But I've been thinking a lot. David, you got me thinking. I actually would like to dig out and have a storm shelter. I prep everything else, but okay, here's Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and it's just a snowy day. Here's a snowy day, and here's the inside, how nicely they build it. See, I like that room too. I'm not going to lie. I love decorating, and I love stuff. I don't have any nice stuff because I have animals that ruin it, so I pretend. Look at the lighting in this place. So how much do you think this was? $479 if you want to live there. This is what you can get. just everything they tell you to see on a home and garden TV. So what kind of, weather events are going to happen in Sioux Falls? Think about that. That's what I'm talking about, is the weather events and how the construction is, especially after what we saw. Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay, so Arkansas has its issues. Look at the big houses. It looks to me like, look what they're doing. It looks like they're doing like they do all over. They build these McMansions all over the United States, and look at them. Now, what do you think would happen? The first big wind gust that would come in, I think it would take that right there. You see, up there where that roofing is? I don't know. I'm certainly not an expert. But this in Arkansas is, let's see. Where are we? 540. Custom built. It's humongous. 4,254. Features 4 bedrooms and 4.5 bathrooms. 2 living areas. An office flex and bonus room. Okay, so we're going to move on. Let's go. We're going to move on. I don't even know if I'm going to get to all 51 by the time Nick comes, but you get my drift. Building codes. Yes, of course, Rich says the house screams excess, but they're all over, Rich. All over. Excess. And they're not energy efficient homes, Gene. All right, let's move on to Denver. Denver is Colorado. This is a townhome. Here's a townhome in Denver. Looks very much like what I used to own before I lived here. When I was working at the university, I had a townhome, but let's see what the price of this was. Oh, mine did not look like this. My townhome, yes, it had floors, but my townhome was decorated in the 1970s, and I left. I sold it, and it was still decorated in the 1970s. Oh, yes. Okay, $545 for this. Holy crap. $545. So what can happen in Denver? Droughts? What can happen in Denver? What are the next catastrophic fires, events that are going to happen? Is there anything that's going to withstand? So here's Louisville. And actually, Louisville, Kentucky was not that far from where the tornado hit. So here's a big old brick building. It looks pretty old. And that's in Louisville. And let's see, $495. It's a multi-family home. It was built over a century ago, but it has multiple renovations. So it's 12 bedrooms and 6.5 baths. And they say, look at the rental income on that. All right, so here's that. So think about that. That house is old. It's been through a lot. It's probably been through some weather. It's weather, All right, hang on. I need to take a sip of this. Guys, I've been sick, so I can't eat a lot. I still can't. So I'm taking my vegetables with my vegetable 8s, and they are wonderful, and all the greens are in there. It's sad because I still can't eat much, which actually is probably going to do a good thing for clothes. And of course, nothing is ever the same on our channel. It's never the same start. I never have the same color hair. So here we go. Bridgeport, Connecticut, $500,000. Here's a house that looks like it's 2-family. And what is the weather? What could happen in Bridgeport? Okay, Bridgeport. How far is Bridgeport from the ocean, the coastline? There's the inside. Looks like 2 apartments. There's that gray, the new requisite gray everybody's got to have in their house. Thank God I don't have HGTV anymore, because they hook you. And it happened to me when I was younger. They hook you and they say, oh, you have to have this and that. And I thought, well, I really want to have this and that. And I don't. And here I don't. Here I have, I don't know, that and that. So here's Wilmington, Delaware. This is the state that our president was the senator from. And I love the way they say location can mean the difference between a mansion and a bachelor pad. So here's a pretty big one. All right, the kitchen looks, it's humongous. You could probably have three people canning in this kitchen. It doesn't look too updated, but they've got a really lovely room in the back and all that stuff. 549,000. So that's the unincorporated community of Anglesey outside of Wilmington. So remember, guys, I want you, somebody in the audience, look up. Be my secretary. While we're doing this, look up every single location and let's see what we can have that happens there. Okay, well, look at Honolulu, Hawaii. Didn't they get snow in Hawaii just this past week? Now look at that place. Holy shit. I feel like I'm watching Hawaii 5-0 updated. Okay, so doesn't that almost look like a green screen, that window? It doesn't even look real. And this house is 525. And it says paying 500,000 for 595 square feet may not sound too enticing. To be fair, this one bedroom, one bath unit in Kakakau is pretty nice. The condo features a high-end kitchen with quartz countertops. Gosh, guys, maybe I should be a realtor. But around here, I'd be selling Amish houses and farmhouses. Probably there's not a lot of fluff where I live. Okay, here's Boise, Idaho. And interestingly enough, I met somebody not long ago from Boise. I bought a chair from him for $100, and it's the most uncomfortable chair in my living room. It's awful. However, he came from Boise and inherited some property not far from me, which actually had the most magnificent view on it was gorgeous. He came from there. He said all the Californians are coming from Boise and the house prices are getting pushed up because everybody's getting the hell out of California and they're going to Boise. So now a house that looks like a little shit house, right? A little shit house, a little regular house. In Buffalo, this house would probably be 90 to 110,000 depend on the neighborhood. So here's their living room. And it looks like a very nondescript that's not even comfortable to cook in. $500,000 in 1940. And it's in Depot Bench. So what happens in Idaho, guys? What would a house need to be reinforced for any kind of weather event in Idaho? Boy, we got a lot to go through. And excuse me, I am itchy from the wood stove. My stomach is messed up, but I'm here playing around with things today. I'm canning food. That's another thing. When I finish this, I have to go back and get the pressure canner started because I didn't have enough time, but I'm canning meat actually for gifts for people for Christmas. So meat eaters. Now look at this place. This is LA. Oh my God, LA. Look at this house. Los Angeles. Wow. This is the house in LA, and this house is $495,000 in East LA. Now, didn't Cheech and Chong have a song, Born in East LA? All right, so it's $500,000 to live in this house, and it's got quick access, fixer upper in East LA. So what weather events happen in East LA? Could they be a fire hazard in East LA? Have fires gone to East LA? All right, we're moving to Chicago. Here we go. Now, that's a very lovely older house. Looks very much like Buffalo, New York houses. And very, as is the style in the United States, humongous. Even if there's not an ass to sit in that seat, they'll have the seats. And here's the backyard on this one. What happens there? This is a $500,000. So with this one, it is nice. I do like the older houses, even though mine isn't. They are more substantially built. And if this one was upgraded, it's probably even a better, more substantial. But as we saw, if anybody, I don't even have them, but we saw, I'm sure all of you saw the drone people, the storm chasers in Kentucky. And who knows? We don't even know. I didn't look for a before picture. So that's a 1911 house. And boy, we could do this the whole show. Well, let's just keep doing it till Nick comes, and then we'll ask him about some of these areas and maybe about, I hate the word sustainability, but houses that could withstand more than, well, the house of the future. Because obviously, if people are going to be rebuilding in Kentucky, are they going to rebuild with the same type of mindset they built earlier? Or are they going to rebuild with all kinds of things to help withstand these traumatic weather events? Now, here's a little house in Indianapolis, Indiana, that's been completely renovated, very tastefully, very contemporary. It's definitely been, what do they call it? Staged to sell. 525, 2,400 square foot home. It doesn't say how old it is. Let's see, did it say how old it was? Well, to me, that house looks like it would be knocked down in any weather event. It's just weird. All right, Des Moines, Iowa. Now, we all know that Des Moines is probably outside of a zone also for weather events. And look at that. That's kind of wild. I don't know if I like it, especially that desk. Okay, what's the consensus, guys? I don't know. Kind of like, do I like it? Nah, this one is like, I got to play with my little things. The crowd is going to be so disappointed at this one. All right. So I have to play with something. So this one is, this part looks all right. Radiators. So maybe they have a big boiler downstairs, which means it sucks the oil up, and it's cold, right? I mean, it's cold in Des Moines, so it's probably sucking oil like you wouldn't believe. All right. 525. Housing is relatively cheap, so working your way up to 500 grand gets you quite a lot. So it looks older. It might be more substantial, but then again, we don't know. You don't know. Now, this one doesn't look like it's one of those substantial houses. It looks, again, with these peaks that would catch in wind, I would think, And there's, again, the seats at the, what do they call those? The island, because I have one actually, but I work. My house is always full of crap, canning, growing. Yeah, never looks like this. All right, so this is 480, the Reed Cove neighborhood. Look at that. All right, let's move on. I want to get going because we know that house looks like, 100-mile-an-hour wind, and it's done. New Orleans. Those people have been through the mill in New Orleans. So here's a little typical house in New Orleans that's been renovated, obviously, since the hurricane. Nice bathroom. Okay, let's see. It's $500,000, and it was a recent addition. Oh wow! So it's a new house, been built in historic Algiers Point, just across from the Mississippi, from the French Quarter. All right, let's look really quickly at this house. If another hurricane came through New Orleans, is this the kind of house that would make it? We don't know what kind of roofing inside, but they did put on, it looks like shingle, which they get blown off pretty easy. But I think in any of the winds, I don't think you could really, but we'll ask Nick what he thinks. Okay, Portland, Maine, $500,000. That's a $500,000 house. Oh my God. It's unreal, isn't it? Oh my God. So this house, you can have this house for $500,000. It looks like, well, I don't know, is that the back? Anyway, it's historic. $475,000 for that house. Holy crap. Now, what do you think in Portland, Maine? What happens in Portland, Maine? Is Heidi with us from Maine? I didn't know Portland, Maine had gone up so much because where I live here in Western New York, this house is a $70,000 house. Maybe, So I guess it's all location, like they say, between a mansion and a bachelor pad. Hope I'm not making you dizzy. I want to get through a lot of this because Nick's going to join us really soon. And I should actually check just to make sure that there's no message from Nick saying everything's really bad. Oh, and he's got an article for me. So I'll pull it up when he comes. All right, here's Baltimore. What's going on with Baltimore? So what's this? A corner unit? And my God, if somebody's going to take a picture, this is how they take a picture. Do you really think they want to sell this house? And yeah, Katie, you're probably right. Very limited housing in Portland, Maine. Everybody wants to live in Maine. We have friends that bought land up there. I have friends, I shouldn't say. My soon-to-be ex-husband has friends. I don't even know how to articulate it. But I guess this is really not the way to sell. It must be the income apartment. Oh, my God. I can't believe that the realtor would put this on. Oh, you can see the vision of what it's going to look like when you dump all your money in it that you're borrowing from a bank. Surprised that these houses are even on for sale and that they're not being scapped up by these investors to rent them out. That's a big thing. It's a pretty big house, so it's multifamily. All right. See, if you're willing to strip it down to the studs, it was constructed in 1900. Doesn't come with running water, heat, or electricity. Okay. Says it could be 5 units, but that's in Baltimore. And let's think about what can happen in Maryland. Maryland can have all kinds of weather. And, yep, boy. Either the cats or that wood stove really got me tonight. Boston, Massachusetts. Lovely city. And this is an apartment. Boston's a condo. And it's $500,000. But the median listing is under $1 million. It makes it a bargain. But, a bargain for who? Because every kid that is, people are getting the shitty end of the stick with these real estate prices. But I suppose if you're earning, well, that's a whole economic discussion. We're not going to have that. You have to go to a different channel for that. Now, this is a house in Detroit. That is a beautiful home. I really want to know. Look at the detail. You see how the detail, it's got to be an older home. It has to be. Has to be an older home because these people really did a nice job on it. And they're selling it. All right. In Detroit, which it used to be the Motor City, guys. It's the Motor City. This architecturally preserved home boasts 5 bedrooms, big house, 4.5 baths, and it is minutes away from Detroit's Cultural Center Historic District. So that's what you can get in Detroit for $500,000. What events would happen this house has been up for a long time. What events could happen that would knock a house like this down? Brick. It's a solid house. What do you think? What do you guys think out there? What would knock that one down? All right. Here's Minneapolis. $500,000. Let's see what Minneapolis looks like. Well, we're seeing the inside. It looks like a condo. Not a very nice view, is it? All right. $475 in the heart of Minneapolis. It's the Mill District, which kind of reminds me of what Buffalo's like. All righty. Jackson, Mississippi. Now, I know Jackson. What did Jackson, Mississippi have? Did a hurricane hit them? Well, here's a house. Now, look at the size of this house. Okay, compared to some of the others. And look at the foliage in the grounds. It is very pretty. It's lovely. Wow. All right, let's see here. Oh my. I think it's nice. But $499. All right, so you look at the apartments or whatever, but the main draw is it's a 4,000 square foot house. Would this withstand a catastrophic weather event in Jackson, Mississippi? That's the whole bottom line on all of these. What would survive a catastrophic weather event in any of these? All right, so here's Billings, Montana. It's cold in Billings, and you're telling me that in Billings, Montana, somebody did a gravel job, that this house is $500,000. Well, okay. They've got a, all right. So that is built in 1999. What happens in Billings? A lot of snow. um, I guess there could be some kind of torrential storm, but would the roof of that house hold in some, in 10 feet of snow? Who knows? Or is Billings changing, and is Billings becoming warmer than it was? Maybe we could ask Nick. Okay, I will never remember. Here's Jacksonville in good old Florida. Da, 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 da. Jacksonville, isn't that the county seat? All right, here it is, your streamlined kitchen and your kind of out of date bathroom if you watch all the bullshit. Now, there's people that live in places on our planet, in the world, that live in a bathroom or they live in something the size of a bathroom. And of course, we have our tiny house movement now in the United States and maybe all over the world, which is not a bad idea. This is 539 in Florida. So that's what you get in Florida. And we know that there's a lot of things. And Jacksonville's up on the coast. So there's a lot of things that could happen. I don't think that house would ever make it through something catastrophic. Nope. Here's Omaha. Omaha, Nebraska. This is a very American looking normal house. This is what they build everywhere. This is what they look like. And I have no idea how those roofs are, but I do know that I have seen a lot of damage in different areas of tornadoes and all. And these houses, their roofs are almost the first ones to get pulled off, because there was also Canada, first ones. All right, well, I can't blame them for this. They've got a nice raised bed garden. That deserves an applause, because that's nice. And everybody, yes, everybody should have that. Okay. All right. We're going a half an hour. Nicholas should be joining us soon. Let me make sure that he got the right thing. Oh, you're here. You're in the green room. Okay. Nicholas is with us. All right. Let me get him in the green room. I lost track of time. Let me bring Nicholas in with me. And Nicholas, welcome. I lost track of time as I was going through all these areas. Hi. Hi, everybody. Nick's with us.
Hi.
Welcome. Well, you were watching, and of course, I'm not going to get through the whole thing, but wasn't it interesting to think about the housing and sustainability in these kinds of terrible weather events, Nick? You see all of it. It's like everything gets leveled. So we definitely want to hear from you. They've had a half an hour of me blabbing my blab off, and while you're talking and I'm fixing, tell everybody how you are, what's going on, and your thoughts about all of this. Hurricane, why tornado, was it the retro, why it happened, and will we ever be able to build to compensate for all this? So welcome, Nicholas. I lost your...
Hi.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay,
You good.
good. Just making sure.
Yes.
Um,
Perfect.
yeah. Well, right now I'm finishing up the semester. Um, I just finished some last stuff. I have like a paper I'm writing for a class, but yeah, I'm finished the semester basically. First semester as a PhD student, so that's what's been going on. Obviously, everyone's heard about the horrible tornado
Yeah.
outbreak that happened a few days ago. I think it was Friday night. Yeah, they're still trying to assess that one tornado that might have gone for over 200, 250 miles, continuous track. And if that happened, that would be a world record for tornado track.
Wow.
Um,
Wow,
yeah, and
wow.
I mean it devastated communities and parts of Arkansas, either as a single tornado or as a tornado family, devastate parts of Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and of course Kentucky, Mayfield. I think it's Mayfield, Kentucky,
Mayfield.
got
Yep,
one of the
Mayfield.
worst
Mm-hmm.
impacted. Yeah, yeah. Now I'm hearing about this candle factory in Kentucky that was hit. I posted on my weather page, Meteorologist Nick Humphrey page on Facebook a day or
Okay.
two ago about the fact that
Pull that up.
the ability of people to, well, taking protective action in response to a warning is a social activity. It's not
Yeah.
just individual like behavior; it's a social activity. It's based on people's responses to the environment, to what other people are doing. Social cues, things like that, and they form a perception of risk for how under threat they are by an
All
immediate
right.
hazard. Well, in this case, you had people that actually wanted to respond to the danger of a tornado. They were under a tornado warning, and there was and they did not have the opportunity to do so because they had to then gamble with the risk of losing their job. There it is right there. Factory workers threatened with firing if they left before a tornado,
Yeah.
employees
Look at
say.
that.
So, I mean, basically, that's I told people like yesterday or a day or two ago that that's why people will not leave their place of employment during a tornado, or they will drive through floodwaters to get to a job, because in the in the employment environment, in the work environment, you're at the mercy of your employer, and if your employer um, states that they cannot, they will not let you, be safe in a way that's appropriate, meaning take shelter or
No
stay
shit.
home
This is
or something
terrible.
out. It suddenly the individual has to gamble. What's the risk of me dying in an event that's relatively rare, particularly rare, such as a tornado, versus in any given place,
Uh huh.
versus uh, losing your job for any reason. You don't show up for work, you could lose your job. You leave your place of employment, you could lose your job. And guess what? People are going to pick the obviously more likely option, which is they're going to lose their job if they don't go to work or they leave work early.
That's
And so that's what people
insane.
did. And that's what people
Yeah.
did. That's what they did. They stayed there
Insane.
because
Oh
they didn't
my
want to lose their
god.
employment, even though they knew the building is not safe to be in a violent
Right.
tornado, and the tornado
Jesus
just happened to hit the
Christ.
building.
Oh,
So
Nick. Oh,
it's
Nick.
you know it's it's this issue of profit over people.
Always.
And you're at the when you're being an employee of a job is a
Yeah.
dictatorship. It's not a democracy. So you don't get to vote whether you leave or not. I mean, you can leave. You're not a slave, but
Right.
you kind of are, because you lose your job and you go homeless in the tornado, and you're thinking, oh, the tornado doesn't hit. I just lost my job for no reason. So you stay. And that's the decisions people are having to make, because their employers either don't care about them in the response period, which is this
Mm-hmm.
immediate threat of a violent hazard destroying their location, or they didn't prepare adequately for an event before it happened, and so people are left to um, be in an unsafe shelter in this environment when a threat approaches. So yeah, I mean yeah, I mean it's I mean I really thought because somebody I won't mention their name, but there's a rather well known meteorologist and structural engineer that got on Facebook, and I posted his post. I shared his post on my
All right.
Facebook
Well, let
page, so
me
people
pull
can
that
see who
up
he is.
again.
And he asked the question, why were there people working in the candle factory during a tornado warning? You can keep scrolling and it'll show up. But
I'm a scrolling. I'm a
mhm.
scrolling and looking at your long haired hippie. You
Yeah.
looking like a long haired
Oh,
hippie. Okay.
that's my personal page. If you go to
Ah.
my weather
Oh, you
page,
want me to go to
um,
the weather
yeah,
page?
yeah, the weather
Okay.
page,
Hang
it
on.
should pop up faster.
Okay,
Yeah.
you keep talking. I'll find it while you
Okay.
are
Yeah, you just
talking.
look up meteorologist Nick Humphrey. But yeah,
I
and
should
I
know that by
basically
now.
said, well, I mean, it's the reason people do that is because you know what's the when most tornado warnings are false alarms, which is true. When when there is a tornado, the odds of it hitting your exact spot are low, and
Mm-hmm.
you're in for an employer, and they decide they don't want you taking protective action, and if you do, you know, even in the face of that, and if you do, you could potentially lose your job. Which risk appears higher? What's the perception of risk? The perception of risk of the tornado hitting you and killing you seems lower than the risk of getting slammed by your boss and losing your job and being homeless. And so what do people pick? They see the bigger risk as losing their job versus getting killed by a tornado, so they don't leave, or they drive through a flood to get to work
Right.
because they were told they still need to come to work, a flash flood. That's what people do. I'm trying to get this through to people because I know a lot of meteorologists that don't really understand human behavior necessarily. They understand warnings, and
Right.
they see the warning process as we issue a warning. We expect people to respond a certain way. The reality is, people respond the way people respond, which is through social interaction, and that social interaction includes the power structure of employment, as a threat, and loss of employment is a risk that they will think about in their minds, leading to potentially not taking protective action as an individual because they perceive the power structure as being a bigger threat a bigger threat than the natural hazard approaching them. There's the post right there.
Yep,
Tim
there it
Marshall. Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yep, there it is.
yeah. And I
Yep,
mean, it
there it
generated a lot
is.
of
Yep,
commentary from a lot
there
of
it
people
is.
who, some of whom understand this process not by having taken a course in response theory, like
Okay.
I just did this semester, but because of personal experience, where
Sure.
they've had to either make those decisions or other people have had to make those decisions, and people that are, that are on the warning side, the warning communications side, don't necessarily see what the receiver is experiencing. The receiver of the warning is experiencing, and the receiver of the warning, an example of a receiver, were the people that were in that candle factory who got the
Oh
warning either
God.
because they got it, maybe they did get it from their employer, or they got it through their cell phone or something
Mm-hmm.
else telling them that there was a confirmed tornado coming towards the community. But
Jesus.
then the power structure that they're a part of, the
Yep.
job, the employer who has power over their ability to get money, to make money, and go home and have money and food, told them no, you can't leave the building, even though the building clearly did not have adequate shelter to protect them.
That's
So
That's so fucked up. As just a quick aside, as an HR director, we live in from Buffalo. We knew when there were going to be gigantic storms, and we anticipated it. And I always made the decision to send my people home before it got bad, where they would be stuck. I mean, there were many times we were
mm,
stuck in the conference room, but we weren't going to be, blown away. So I wasn't
yeah,
dealing with tornadoes there, but it was still a decision that I had to make. And I always erred on the side of the employee and their safety. I can't even imagine. Yes, it's Christmas season, but how selfish, how awful, and how horrible can you be to make these people stay?
yeah. I mean, here's the thing: like, I mean, if there's like adequate shelter in the building, then
Yeah.
I can understand them telling them to don't leave the building. You take shelter here. Like I've been at work during tornado warnings, like in Lincoln, Nebraska, and stuff, where we were instructed to go to a specific place, or if there or in preparedness activities, we were told if there is a tornado, warning, you go to this interior room or this interior bathroom or whatever. So if there's adequate shelter, then that's one thing, but factories are like big box stores. There's places
Get
it's
that.
hard to sometimes find adequate shelter, especially for a significant amount of people that may be in the factory or in the building, you
Yeah.
know. So and the warnings with associated with this tornado, because one of the things that was good about the fact that it was such a long track, sustained tornado is that there were warnings, maybe 20, 30 minutes or more ahead of time that it was
Mm-hmm.
coming because it was such a it's like a small hurricane. It's like a sustained structure storm event that was continuous, and so there was plenty of warning of it. It was like obvious through detection on radar, through visual confirmation that it was there. So there was warning well ahead of time, even though the storm was moving at like 50, 60 miles an hour. So it's pretty extraordinary. The warning process was working really well, but would have given people enough time to be able to say, this building is not adequately not safe. You have enough time if you choose at your own risk as a company. You have the choice to go somewhere else where you feel safer. If you
You
don't,
are
then you can go
riled
to
up
this
on
place in the
this.
building. But it doesn't sound like that anybody that the employee is talking about that are saying that they couldn't leave had any confidence that that building had
That's
any adequate
insane.
shelter whatsoever. And I mean, people died there when it was hit.
Yeah,
Um,
I could
yeah.
definitely tell your emergency management focus now. And this is really upsetting. It's very upsetting. It is. Now, look at all this. Look at the damage. And as I was showing, I don't know what you caught about the homes I was showing in all these different parts of the United States, and to think of which city, what would be the type of thing that would, all right, for example, what would be the type of construction for a candle factory that would have had some place for these people to go?
Hmm.
What, Nick? I mean, did they,
Um,
a
oh, you
shelter, a
mean
storm shelter?
on the candle factory?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, they would have been the only locations you could really think of if there's no basement, which is really hard to find basement in a factory. Would be like interior bathrooms,
Oh,
interior
look
meeting
at this.
conference rooms, something where there's whether it's interior walls because preferably you want
Okay.
the exterior walls are going to go first in a violent tornado, and then the interior walls will hopefully hold up long enough that
Look
you're
at them.
safe as the exterior of the building caves in on itself. But the thing is that once you start getting above like EF3 into EF4, EF5, the winds are so violent, that you end up getting widespread destruction into the interior of the building. So, I
That's
mean,
what we're
it's
looking at.
better than nothing, but you really want underground shelter for tornadoes that are that violent. Um, and so, factories are just, those kind of buildings, big box stores, factories. I mean, we had a tornado in Lincoln um, a couple years ago, and it was right at me and my fiance had driven into town from Omaha, from going out at Omaha, and I saw the tornado actually touch down to the south of me, but I did not want to take shelter in the big box grocery store. I had us get in the car and I drove us north away from the circulation into the hail and the rain core of the
Oh,
thunderstorm
yeah.
that was
Oh,
producing the
my.
tornado. And it got
Wow.
windy and blasting. We parked in a Walmart parking lot, but I knew we were just going to get rain and hail, and the tornado was far to the south of us, and that's where it was. I did not want to have any risk of being in a big grocery store where it's
Yeah.
hard to find adequate shelter, because I just knew better, and
Yes.
I mean that's the issue with tornadoes. Like, um, there's a lot of debate about whether you should evacuate from a tornado, because it's a shorter
Mm-hmm.
fuse event, meaning there's shorter forewarning for the event. And obviously, there's
How much
risk
time? How much time
when
did
it
they
comes
have
to.
at this one?
I think they had us actually quite a bit of time.
Okay.
So it looks like I'm reading the story. It says. Um, employees congregated in bathrooms and inside hallways, but the real tornado didn't arrive for several more hours. After employees decided that the immediate danger passed, several began asking to go home.
Oh.
People had questioned if they could leave or go
Oh.
home, who preferred to stay at work and make extra money. Um, Supervisors and team leaders tell employees that leaving would jeopardize their jobs. If you leave, you're more than likely to be fired. I heard that with my own ears.
Right.
About 15 people asked to go home during the night shift shortly after the first emergency alarm sounded outside the facility. And so, I mean, they were there so people actually were wanting to leave very early, like before the immediate threat of the actual tornado, even.
Which would have
And
been the time. Which would have
yeah,
been the time if it was my decision making. My decision making was always erring on the side. But look at these pictures. You can see
yeah,
them, right? It's just all those houses I showed for the first part of the show to look at all the different cities. Like when you look at this, it just makes it seem like we don't build in our country for any
yeah.
kind of and the insurance companies are going to start getting hip to this, and they're not going to want to pay out unless these homes are I don't even know. Somebody mentioned earlier I should have a structural engineer kind of person come on as a guest, and we could do a second part from this
Well,
because
I
I'm
mean, the
so
thing with
interested.
with building codes is that
Uh-huh.
the building codes. I mean, this goes for any sort of um, um, societal response um, to. I'm talking about like long term mitigation
Yeah.
to a hazard. It is usually after a hazard has actually um, caused such a destructive event that the government then has to care about mitigation.
Look at
So I mean,
look at this.
it's reactive behavior basically.
Yeah.
The human society tends to be reactive. So,
Yeah, we
for
do. We are.
example, Hurricane Andrew flattened a lot of homes in South Florida in 1992, and Homestead and in those areas were
Mhm.
devastated, and but they were devastated when they didn't necessarily have to be but they had really shoddy building codes, and in fact, the construction practices I think were subpar to the existing building codes in South Florida at the time. So the houses basically just fell apart in the face of category 4 and 5 wind speeds. And so that changed
Mm.
dramatically the policy of how to build in South Florida. So now if you get another category 5, at the very least, the winds will not cause as much mass destruction, at least to newer homes, as they would have previously. But that's what it takes sometimes for society to actually do something in a mitigating manner, is to have a reactive a reaction to an event that was so devastating and catastrophic that you
Oh
have to do something. And
God.
that's unfortunate, but people. I mean, it's like what happened with Galveston in 1900. There was actually talk I think in the late 1880s of building a seawall to try to mitigate against a storm surge from a landfalling hurricane in Galveston, because the town of Indianola, Texas, was actually destroyed
Oh.
twice by
Wow.
hurricanes, and it's now a
Wow.
ghost town. It doesn't exist anymore. And so the rich folks in Galveston were like, "Oh, well, maybe we should do something so that doesn't happen here," which was actually a very good idea. But then you had politics, and you had slow as molasses process, and then by the time the money that I think the Texas state government at the time actually allocated money that could be used to build a seawall, nobody wanted to do it anymore, because then the what we call blue sky complacency
Oh
came
boy.
involved, where people were like, "Oh well, we don't we don't have to do this. It's not going to happen here. Everything's been good, for years now. It's not going to happen." And they went another 10 or 12 years without anything happening until
Yeah, they went
1900, when a
another
category
10 to 12.
category 4 hurricane struck Galveston and obliterated the
Yeah,
town.
they had their magical
So
thinking. Yeah, they were
yeah,
thinking like, "Oh, nothing's going to happen."
yeah,
Jeez.
yeah.
Oh, Nick. So, did you want me to try to pull up that article, the other article? I was just showing all these pictures because they're just so poignant. The ones that you posted on the site on your page. They let me see, do you have anything? Oh, do you have a video here that was interesting that maybe would be something to show?
I think that was this video of the actual tornado that they
Well,
might have
let's
been the
see.
very long track one. Yeah, yeah, that was the tornado. That was the very long track
Uh-oh,
tornado. And
I have to keep moving us around the screen.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah, that's the
frightening. And it's
yeah
loud.
that
I watched the storm chaser. That's frightening.
yeah
Woo.
that was at
Yeah.
night.
Look at
I
that.
mean,
Oh
the
my
warning
God.
system did its job. I mean, particularly for a nighttime violent tornado. I mean, it's pretty much the worst case scenario where you could get a violent
Holy
tornado
crap.
that's very long lived. You know, it may have been if it was a continuous tornado, it may have been on the ground for 3 hours, maybe go 250 miles, but it had ample warning of like minutes, and I mean, it had the overall event generated
Oh my God.
even a couple of hours of warning, like to the point to where you had people in the candle factory actually suggesting to leave early
Yeah.
long before the tornado was
Oh my
an
God.
immediate, meaning within 10 or 20 minutes threat to the candle factory, you know, and they had so there was actually time to have a tornado evacuation, as opposed to
Wow.
having to shelter in place because you didn't have enough time to actually leave. They had enough time to leave because they were responding not to that specific tornado, but to the all the tornado activity that could later, within the next 2 or 3 hours,
Wow.
threaten their location. They understood that a lot of those people understood that this probably isn't a place to be staying during a tornado, and it obviously turned out not to be that way. And of course the I'm reading the news story, and the employer is denying that they didn't follow their own policy, which was you can leave if you wish. Yeah, multiple. I think like 15 employees said that they heard or were told explicitly that you cannot leave.
Well,
So
when you are like running FEMA and you are going to be able to change and mitigate and help people. There you have to be able to do that. That's what's going to have to happen. Uh, wow. So
well,
what
they're gonna
was
have to. I mean, there has
Go
to
ahead.
be like. To me, there has to be like not only like like states, but it has to be like some kind of federal policy that that forces employers to actually do preparedness for disasters and have specific measures in place to protect our employees, and that has to be
Okay.
OSHA enforced. So it has to be either you have underground shelter, or for some reason
Yeah.
the ground environment is not conducive to building underground shelter, water table, stuff like that, and then you need to have above ground shelter. Or if it's like something big like a factory or something where it's not as necessarily reliable to create interior locations that can
Mhm.
hold like hundreds of people, then you
Mhm.
need to give them the option, give some kind of option to shelter in place, or the option to leave without risk of being fired because of your employment. I mean, this problem. This is one of the problems that comes with, not having unions, not having having this truly at will employment where they can fire you for any reason. It
Which is the
hinders the
worst.
ability for people to be able to respond to an immediate dangerous
Well, that's
event,
got to
to
change
either to
and
protect
now we're
themselves
seeing
or to
it.
protect their families,
Well, we're
outside
seeing
of
it.
the building. Yeah.
Now it's going to have to be something that people take up as a cause and write to their Congress people and write to their Senate and write those letters and make them understand this is a topic. This is something very important. It has to be
Yeah.
going forward. It has to be. That was cruel. It was cruel. But what about communities, Nicholas? I had pulled up the devastating effects of climate change on the U.S. housing security, and that was before I actually knew you were going to be with me. That was where I
Hmm.
was going. This article talks about the disasters and how are we going to what communities are affected, how are we going to rebuild, how are we going to ever be able to do these things as climate change does intensify? mean, do you have
Yeah.
thoughts on this besides
Yeah.
the
I mean, recovery is like the recovery phase, as we call it, in emergency management, is like one of the most like it's still a lot of study that has to go into it because right now, um, like recovery activities are mostly a lot of times are done by nonprofit organizations
Mhm.
in terms of trying to rebuild people's homes, provide them with longer term, shelter or furniture if their furniture was destroyed, things of that, of that nature to, case management to get them jobs, stuff like that. If they lost their job because their employer was, built, was destroyed or something, things like that. The U.S. government, at least, is not, unfortunately, very um, as involved in recovery as it should be. They're very good at response, which is the search and rescue operations and immediate attempts at least to try to coordinate activities between agencies um, to deal with the disaster rescuing people, cleaning up immediately, trying to rebuild public infrastructure. Um, but with recovery, it's a struggle. And I'm actually taking a recovery theory course next semester, so that'll
cool.
be really good to learn more about the theory of recovery um, in the U.S. context. But it's going to become more of an issue in the coming years because you're having climate disasters that are both causing significant damage,
Yeah.
what they call is damage. And like that, I did glance over that article before I came on. It discussed a couple issues. Number one, multiple events where you get one event that causes destruction, you rebuild, spend all of this resources to rebuild, and then another
Yeah.
event comes very shortly after. It could be this same type of event, like another hurricane. If we had one before, it could be flooding, or it could be an earthquake, and it causes
Mhm.
devastation again. And so the recovery is always continuing, and it's always trying to play catch up to these disasters that are picking up pace because of
Oh,
climate
it's going to
change.
be catch
And
up. Totally
yeah,
catch up. And these people,
you know,
nobody's house is really, nobody's house, these apartments, nothing. And it said localized housing solutions in conjunction with adequate federal responses will help communities build resiliency to better weather climate related disasters. And whether
yeah,
that happens or not, I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know
And
what could, structural
one of
engineering.
the things the article mentioned was the fact that disadvantaged groups, people
Of
of color,
course.
especially, are
Yes.
at most at risk because they face basically in issues of environmental racism, where they're put in places that are more vulnerable to hazardous events. They're put in floodplains. They're put in areas closer to the ocean. That if it's not scenic, they're put there. If it's scenic,
Yeah.
the white folks live there, but they have the
Yeah.
money and the resources and the insurance to
There you
pay
go.
as long as it exists. But if it's not scenic, then the people of color are left there to deal with it.
Bingo.
And so, and actually, one of the things I'm studying for a dissertation topic is more in the response. How does issues in race and class inhibit and hinder the ability of disenfranchised to respond to a disaster. And,
Huge.
what happened in that candle factory, is an example of a class issue where you have people that don't make a lot of money that have to worry about their employment
Hmm.
versus a tornado.
Yeah.
You know,
I
there
saw
you
the
go, right there.
manager.
That's a perfect
The manager
example
was
of
on
that.
TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He was there. He didn't die. He was talking. He
yeah,
didn't look very good when they interviewed him, but he was probably not there on the night shift, but wasn't he? I mean, he's talking on television. It's very evasive. What, and I think he skirted the issue, the safety issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because he could get his ass could be in trouble. You know, he could be in
Yeah.
trouble. We will find out. We will find out. But you are completely right because this article and I thought I looked up it was from the Aspen Institute and I made sure that it was a verifiably decent publication and that they weren't taking money from any, dark money and they're not. Past and current
Hmm.
discriminatory housing policies contribute to increased risks for households of color and threaten their ability to respond to climate change disasters. And most people that are crowded into these city blocks found out during
Hmm.
Hurricane Sandy how not safe they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's how it goes. The in terms of who controls the land use and where people live and their exposure. It's in building codes and building and politics. It's the wealthy. It's the wealthier people.
Yeah, but are
Poor
they even going to be able
suffer
to make?
more, and of
Mm.
course, if you're a person of color, you are more likely to be poor and obviously directly affected because of racism than and so even have more of that potential vulnerability. So I mean, and yeah, it's real. I mean, we saw it during Hurricane Katrina, where I had to read a paper for my response theory class. It was written by a black scholar that lived in New Orleans during. It was there during
Oh,
Katrina, and he
oh,
interviewed. He did interviews with African Americans living who were there during Katrina, asking them why they didn't or couldn't evacuate during the lead up to Katrina. And I mean, some of them were common issues in human behavior that apply to everybody, like, oh, I didn't think the risk was as high, or sometimes
mm,
fatalism because of faith got in the way, like,
oh,
oh,
well,
God
yeah.
will, if I die, I die. God, will either protect me
I'm in
or take me.
Jesus'
Things
arms.
like,
I'm coming to
yeah,
Jesus. I'm coming to
yeah, yeah,
Jesus. I watch
yeah,
these
stuff
people
like
on
that.
TV.
I mean, you see that with black folks,
I
white
mean,
folks, stuff like
you
that.
you
But
too.
then it was
Yeah.
also black specific issues, racial specific issues. Like, for example, um, black folks trying to evacuate through white neighborhoods turned away by the New Orleans police, who were
Oh my
trying to keep them
God.
out of the
I
white
remember that.
neighborhoods.
That
So
was
they
hideous.
actually had the adequate perception of risk to realize that Katrina was a threat and respond to it, but they were hindered by the police, by an authority telling them they couldn't go in this neighborhood to get out in an adequate amount of time. So
Well,
they turned back to their neighborhood. Again, authority and power structures that are controlled either because of race or class, preventing those
ah,
from being able to respond
all over the
properly, and so
country.
they're put at greater risk because of it. So
Well, that gets the environmental coffee house flush of the day, if anything does.
yeah.
Goodbye, old rules. We have to be all. One of the things I listened to was the mayor of Mayfield, and she, of course, had a story about the American flag. That was, I got the American flag and all that, but between she and Andy Bashir, they were talking about the togetherness, and so were other people. The togetherness in the community, that people were helping people, and that
Hmm.
all when these natural disasters and unnatural disasters happen, that people are coming together, and they're forgetting all their fighting. They're forgetting all the
Yeah,
terrible
I mean,
things.
there's
They're
actual
forgetting.
research on that.
Yeah.
The altruistic community, altruism of therapeutic community. Some researchers call, yeah. I mean, it's actually very real. Yeah, people do tend to set aside their differences in response to a disaster in a lot of ways. There's specifics where that may not be the case, like I just mentioned with
Hmm.
the immediate threat. You have
Right.
racism, pre-existing racism
Ugh.
cause problems. But yeah, you do have generally that altruistic um, communities start to rise up in the wake of a disaster, where people will set aside their differences to help others. But yeah,
It
I
would
mean,
be nice to be like that all the time on a daily basis, wouldn't it? But
yeah,
that
yeah,
that then
yeah,
it wouldn't be America if there wasn't a
yeah.
civil war brewing.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to respond to the human tendency to be altruistic comes out better when you see someone in immediate danger or in immediate harm, or they're
Mhm.
injured. Then that sense of humanity comes out, versus in like I said, blue sky times where that isn't there, and people will just will kind of go tribal, or have be competitive, or have their
Oh,
beliefs. Again, when you have pre-existing conditions, like you know pre-existing racial divisions and
race,
stuff like
yeah,
that, or class
hatred,
divisions, stuff like
class,
that,
but hate.
that can spill over into the disaster context and hinder some of that
Wow.
altruism, like an employer saying you can't leave because they care more about profit than about people, like they do when there isn't a disaster threatening, stuff like that. Or you know but so it's complicated, but yeah, generally you do have
Wow.
that altruism that does come out in the
Th-
wake of a disaster. It's been known for like 60 years of research and disaster
Sure.
science. Yeah.
It's really interesting, Nick. I love what you chose. I really do. I love what you chose. You chose something where you're going to give to people and you're going to help, and look at you already. You're already you're there, you know. And it's great. And I appreciate
Hmm.
it. I really do. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions for Nick while he's here about maybe why this might have happened. Was it a derecho? Somebody had suggested to me, well, wait, this was a derecho, and can you go into a little bit more now of the weather and why it happened? Perhaps a little bit.
Well, it was a tornado outbreak. Derecho is like straight line wind
All
event,
right,
like a widespread straight line wind event, like what
that's what I
happened in
wanted to
Iowa
ask.
a couple years ago. In
Yes,
Iowa, where it devastated
yes.
the crops and stuff. That was a
Okay,
derecho. This was a
that
tornado
was a
outbreak.
derecho.
Basically, you just had classic, low pressure system frontal cyclone that developed, um, drew in abundant warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. You had a classic clash of air masses with much colder air. It is December, obviously, and it produced these. Um, you also had adequate wind shear, which is a rapid change in speed and direction with of winds with height, which allowed thunder. So you had thunderstorm development, you had rotation of those storms, and it produced a tornado outbreak as a result of the conditions being favorable in the lower part of the atmosphere for tornadoes to form.
Okay.
And a lot of them occurred at night because, unfortunately, in the South, you they tend to you tend to have more often nighttime tornadoes because you have so much low level moisture that it without getting too technical, it tends to keep the air mass unstable, which means the air can rise even after dark when the sun isn't out, beaming on the ground, heating up the ground and heating up the air to cause it to rise. So
Whoa.
you can
Whoa.
get strong, violent tornadoes that can
Yes.
form even at night, and that's what happened with this event. If this is in fact a single violent tornado that was on the ground for 2-3 hours, traveling 200-250 miles or whatever, it a lot of the event was in the dark, after 6 o'clock, seven
Mm-hmm.
o'clock, 8 o'clock, as it barreled through from um, Arkansas to southeast Missouri into western Tennessee and western Kentucky. Um, and you had obviously other tornadoes. There was a tornado that caused damage, I think, to an Amazon warehouse or facility in Illinois.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and I mean, you had it was, I mean, for December 10th,
Yeah.
it was incredible to see this kind of event. And I
Look at the
know
houses.
Yeah.
There's no way
I
to
mean,
build for this. These were all the houses, the types of houses I just showed in the beginning of the show. And how to
yeah.
me, how do you
I
do
mean, you
this?
could. I mean, you could build. Um, I mean, when you're talking like 200, 300 mile an hour winds, you can't really build anything for that,
Oh,
except unless it's like a steel box, to
a
be
steel
honest,
box.
which is basically
Okay.
what what an interior
Look at these.
storm cellar or storm shelter,
Shh.
above ground storm shelter is. It's just a steel box in a house, so the house goes with the shelter stays, and you're hopefully safe in the shelter. It's no guarantees of anything, but you're safer than not in a storm shelter. Um, but wood frame homes, I mean, masonry homes, they just don't stand a chance with those kind of winds. That's why you
No.
have to have you. I mean, you can have um, improved building practices that at least give you a chance at being able to mitigate against the destructive power of maybe an EF3 tornado, 130, 140 mile an hour winds,
Mm,
um,
mm, mm.
more similar to what you would see in a hurricane. But obviously, once you start getting to EF4, EF5, it gets really hard to build for that. But then that's
Yeah,
why
I
you should
just don't
have
see
adequate
how.
shelter. But it takes
Community
money.
shelter. Community
It takes
shelter.
takes
If
it takes money, and it takes
yeah.
mitigation that thinks ahead and thinks about the actual risk to people if they don't have that shelter. But the problem is humans. Like I said, humans are very altruistic in the wake of a disaster. That's something that's been known for 50 to 60 years of research, but it's also known that and human societies are very reactive. They don't do things unless it's massive devastation and repeated. So like South Florida with Hurricane Andrew, more with the tornadoes in 1999, 2003, 2013, and now they finally have like real like building practices and requirements for storm shelters because they've been hit so repeatedly with violent tornadoes that have caused mass destruction and killed a lot of people, that now they want to do that, but it's reactive. They're only willing to spend the money when the gamble of not spending it seems high. And I mean, two elementary schools being hit by the violent tornado, the EF5 in 2013, that killed a bunch of children. That pretty much was the straw that broke the camel's back to changing some of their building practices. But I mean it's just the way humans are. And so um, that's hard when you're trying to talk about something like climate change, where you can't be reactive. Climate change is happening. That you're going to have these longer term impacts, that involve long-term flooding of communities and extreme heat risks and all these things that come with climate change, and bigger storms. I mean, there is a suggestion of a long-term trend in tornado climatology, where you're getting an eastward shift in Tornado Alley from the plains more to the southeast and the eastern
Mm-hmm.
U.S. And you're also getting a tendency for more highly unstable environments conducive for intense tornadoes later into the year. So, I mean, we're talking November, December instead of earlier in the year or in the spring.
Mm.
And so, um, but so we know these things are happening, but to for a specific like community jurisdiction to actually put in the money to mitigate, a lot of times it's just based on reactive behavior where you get hit, and if you think it's one off, you may not even mitigate for that type of event. But if it's hitting repeatedly, then you might start to do something about it. But by then, you're dealing with all this damage, all this loss of money, this loss of community. People leave because they can't have the money to rebuild. They can't afford the insurance. The insurance companies leave because they don't want to pay to insure areas that are getting hit repeatedly, and your community is dying off because of that. So,
Right.
I mean, it's climate change doesn't care about how humans react, or how highly reactive
No.
humans are. It's going to do its thing.
Look at
you
this
know, and
video. This video is
Yeah.
insane, and it really proved to me that all those houses I was looking at, I'm going back to the beginning again, are never going to withstand any of this. And Nicholas, you know that this is not the end. This is the
Yeah,
beginning.
scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll
I'm
up.
scrolling up.
That's the potential track of that tornado. If it was a single tornado, that may be the potential track of it. It's not known yet. I think they've gotten it through part of Kentucky, like Western Kentucky,
Yep.
but they don't know if this was a single tornado track or if it was what we call a tornado
Insane.
family, which would be multiple tornadoes touching down at once. If this is the tornado, like a single tornado, then this would be a world record for tornado path. I mean, this
Wow.
is ridiculous. I mean, this is like
Now,
250, 270 miles.
why would
But
my friend tell me she said it was a derecho, and I knew you would straighten it out. Why would she say it? What would make
uh,
her think it was?
well, I mean, it's been a misunderstanding of what a derecho is. I mean,
Okay.
nothing more than
Okay.
that.
I mean, she was,
But yeah,
she was a sweet person, just, really like saying, well, wait a minute, this is what it was, like definitively. And I thought, okay. And then I started saying, oh, it was a derecho. And I realized, no, I can't say that because I don't know that. And I'm going to ask
yeah,
Nick. I'm getting Nick on the
yeah.
show.
It was. I mean, radar and visual confirmation. It was
Oh,
definitely a
yeah.
tornado or tornado family. um, so yeah,
Oh,
it was.
frightening. I mean, I felt like,
Yeah,
I'm not there. I'm not involved. I have nothing to do with it, but I watched the weather maps because I was panicked that it would come up, that who knows now with anything goes, and that it would come up this way. And it is, I have to say that tornadoes are frightening. They are frightening. Yes, fires are frightening. It's all frightening, but to me that's only because I had one, but they're frightening. They're
yeah,
unpredictable. How do you fight it when it's a force that just comes on? I mean,
yeah. Uh,
yes, you can tell from far away, you can get ready, but really, how much time does a homeowner have to get ready for this kind of thing? Now
yeah,
here's some graphics,
yeah.
Nicholas. That
Radar. Yeah,
yeah, all the
yeah,
radar. Look at, and the colors. I mean, the color from radar is what scares you. It's like,
yeah.
oh
I
my
know they have
god,
like
it's
a billion
coming.
products on radar now. Yes, but
A
yeah,
belt.
I mean the big thing, yeah, that plume of debris from that tornado, 30 to 35,000 feet. That's crazy. I mean, it was. I mean, they'll probably find at least EF4 damage in this tornado. If it was a
That's what I was
EF5,
going
I
to
mean,
ask you
it's
too.
yeah, yeah. I
A
mean, they
four.
have to, yeah. I mean, they have to go in there and actually look at the construction of what was destroyed in order to actually determine if it was like a well built structure. Because you're looking for um, like damage to like well built, well constructed wood frame homes, to
Yeah.
steel buildings, steel structures, things that could withstand like EF3 to EF4, but couldn't withstand EF5 because the winds were just too high. So that's what they're doing right now. The engineers and meteorologists are looking. They're trying to determine what the EF rating was for this tornado or tornadoes, and actually determine if it was a single tornado path, um, which would be extraordinary. I mean, that's the supercell that produced either that single tornado or family of tornadoes coming out of Arkansas and going into Kentucky. So, I mean, it was a single tornado. That would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's what Kameshwari Kate, who's one of our moderators and wonderful people, she does the show on Wednesday with me. She's from British Columbia, so we did a show together on the floods and the horror that happened up there. She says, I still don't understand if it was one tornado or multiples. Judging from the line, it seems like it was just one. And that's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
unprecedented.
I, I mean, I'm just based on like the continuous level of destruction along the path of the supercell. That's the as it's laid out here. This is obviously the time lapse of the supercell as it
Mm-hmm.
evolved going across from Arkansas to northern Kentucky. I would lean that there was probably a single violent tornado, EF4, EF5 that caused the high level of destruction, and then you had probably satellite tornadoes that were evolving and coming and going as it went. Um, uh, but it's possible you could have had multiple violent tornadoes. One touched down, lifted a short period of time. You had another one
Mm-hmm.
that touched down. Same deal. It just rapid cycled through violent tornadoes. That's also a possibility. Which, I mean, the result is exactly the same. You get
And
this
it
high
was
level of
all
devastation
along
along a path. Yeah.
one front, which
So
is what John is asking. Several tornadoes, but
yeah.
isn't it all along one
One
front?
frontal. Yeah, one frontal system, and that
Insane.
produced like an outbreak. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. It's just like, you know, it it it, it was like stormy and
Yeah.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, oh my gosh. So Nick, we have been I ushered in the first half hour. We've been together. I think we've been together an hour already.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see if we have questions and think about if there's anything else that you would like to cover or talk about or anything, Nick. The
Uh,
floor is yours, and
well,
I'll look at questions.
I think I'm pretty good. I'll have to leave pretty soon, but yeah, I
Okay.
think I covered. I mean, I covered really the important stuff, which was not only obviously the meteorology of the tornado itself, but the issue of human behavior and the ability of people to actually like respond to hazard events. Because of
Yeah.
interference, because of employment, and really class and race and class issues. That's a major thing. That's why it's interesting me for a potential dissertation topic to examine.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah, to examine race and or class issues in response
That's
to
so
ability of people to
important.
respond
Oh my
to
God.
hazard events. Because I mean that's what this is. I mean that's what Katrina was. That's what this event and the candle factory was. I mean it's you know
Oh,
because
we got,
society. I mean, it's just no way
yes.
society can understand how to better allow people to better respond to disasters. I mean, maybe it's because I'm going dipping more into the emergency management realm than just my background in meteorology. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had this kind of pet peeve for a long time, and it kind of got touched off, listening to or reading some of the posts from some meteorologists out there, people asking, why are people doing this? Why are people doing that? Why are people not responding to our warnings in this way? We had give all this lead time and all this, and it's like some people honestly don't fully understand or personalize the risk, but some of it is because of hindrances caused by the social activities
Bias. Yeah.
that are conducting, or bias against them, or
Toward
things
neighborhoods.
pre-existing that that
Neighborhoods.
that affect their ability to respond.
Cool.
It's not
Yeah.
warning is not just about um, the sender writing a message saying a tornado's coming or a hurricane's coming. It's a social activity where if you have a pre-existing power structure or condition or state that makes it challenging to be able to respond, because no.
Well, I
Race is
put
not a
it up.
distraction.
That's Caleb. Well,
Sorry.
Caleb,
It is very, very relevant.
it
you know,
I see, I think it's very relevant
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
I am a studier
that's
of these
yeah,
things
that's
in my
you
copious
know,
spare time.
like I said, it is reason some people could not get out at an adequate amount of time in New Orleans of Katrina. It was not because of the
Right.
class of those people; it's because of the race of those people. It's very
And the
relevant.
neighborhoods. I know that there
and
are
then
neighborhoods
and
that will
the
not be serviced first up in the city of Buffalo. They won't be serviced first.
yeah
They get plowed last. I know because my daughter lived there. I mean, in that neighborhood, they plowed last, and they're just disposable people, and that's not
yeah
right either. None of it's right. Okay, Karen
yeah
says, emergency management is such a great time to learn. You bring such knowledge from being a meteorologist, and that's what we love, Nick. All this is your heart. You've got a gigantic heart. You're a beautiful person. You're so bright and so intelligent, and you bring a lot to the show. And I'm glad that you'll have a little time and we'll do a state of the planet. Hopefully we can get that together with Antonio and Jennifer and blow your socks off, guys.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, in the next couple weeks, I
Yeah,
hope, and
the
yeah,
team.
I'm going to Houston in the last week of January to participate in the American Meteorological Society annual meeting. I got a
Great.
travel grant
Yeah.
to go, so I basically don't have to spend any money except food. And my academic department will actually pay me a little money to go to a conference.
I
So
think it's
for
wonderful.
so I'll be able
Yeah.
to do that, and I'm likely going to be voted on the board for the AMS board on societal impacts, which helps organize some symposiums at the annual meeting, and they do another
Good.
conference later in the year too that also deals with the issues of societal issues related to racial issues, class issues, issues with
Love it.
warning, risk communication, all of these things that are relevant to emergency management and disaster science to actually help people, respond and recover from disasters. So,
We
um,
are so proud of
yeah,
you. I am so proud of you. And I also see the difference. You're excited and you're turned on and you're reinvigorated in life because you're doing something that's, you know, really going to be it's meaningful. And I really do hope you get to work with the federal government because they need people like you. And even though,
yeah,
it would be a good thing. It would be
yeah.
a
I hope
good
so. I mean,
thing.
I've made a contact with the National Weather Service, and with their what they call impact based decision support services, where they do work with like emergency managers to try to help them understand the significant weather events and how to better warn and work with their populations to keep them safe in disasters. And I applied for
Wonderful.
a NOAA internship that I hope I can get in the summer. That would be 10
Woohoo!
weeks. Yeah, paid internship that I can do. So yeah, hoping for opportunities to get my foot in the door with the feds, and hopefully do something to improve emergency management in government. So
Well, we have
challenging
a
as government can
dream.
be.
We have a
Yeah.
dream, and that's for our Nicholas to go places and be able to help because God knows we're going to need it. We need it now. We need it now,
Yeah.
and we're going to need you. And everybody's thanking you, and I'm going to thank you. So, Nick, I will be in touch, and we will get together, the four of us, and that should be a spirited conversation for sure. All right, everybody.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Kate and Karen and Kay, and oh my gosh, we had Darlene and Lone Wanderer. All of you, thank you. I'm going to do and Kim, thank you for modding and thank you for moderating also, Kate. So, Nick, our usual is that I will say goodbye and tell everybody that they should like and subscribe. And don't forget about our Buy Me a Coffee. And I put Nicholas's Patreon link into into the show notes. This is that part of the show. But we want to thank you. It's, it's a labor of love, but it don't come cheap. I mean, I'm honest. They know I've been doing a little whining lately. But anyway, peace out, guys. We love you. We will see all of you together. We will be together very soon.